Welcome, you butt dumplings, to TP For Your Earholes. My name is Charlene Schmidt, and with me is...
Patrick Schmidt.
And today, we are talking about why the early shows suck. That's right. We said it. They suck.
Yeah, this is not our opinion about Beavis and Butt-head. This is just true facts.
Well, we're going to drop that knowledge today. Yes, you have real, actual research that you have done that backs up this claim.
Yeah.
So, haters, watch out.
And that's what we're going to share with you this episode is that research to prove that point. And then we're going to get past that and try to answer the why. Why are these early episodes so they don't stack up to the rest of the series? We're going to explore that.
Yeah, we've got some reasons figured out, I think. You know, the audience is always going to tell us if we're on track or not. That's your job. This is our job. And then that's your job.
Sure.
And the way you can get in touch with us and share your opinion is to go on Blue Sky, Instagram, or Facebook at TP For Your Earholes. You can also go to our website, tpforyourearholes.com. You can leave us a message via the contact form. And also, we are on YouTube, and if you want to leave us a comment there, you're welcome to do so. So without further ado, how about we just get right into it?
Let's do it. I am so ready for this episode. I'm so excited.
You have been. The audience does not know how long that you've been sitting on this knowledge.
Yeah. And I really feel like people who try to get into this series now and they start with episode 1, season 1.
If you can find it.
Right, are probably making a pretty big mistake.
Yeah, I have to agree.
So what I'm trying to get into in this episode is really trying to give people an entry point for the series, and I don't think it's season 1, episode 1. And I'm going to show that in part through the IMDb episode ratings. And there will be a link to the IMDb episode ratings that I used for my research in the show notes, and it'll be on our website. You can check it out there. Now, I fully admit that IMDb ratings are not fully, truly representative, but each episode does have about 150 to 200 votes from IMDb users, and it's on like a 0 to 10 scale. So even though it may not be fully representative, it's probably the closest thing that we have right now.
That's fair. I mean, it's a selective sample size, but it's not a huge sample size, but it's also not minuscule either.
Yeah. And the episodes we're going to be looking at are the original run and the 2011 reboot. That is 214 episodes, at least according to IMDb. It does not include the 2022 or 2023 reboots. For some reason, IMDb counts those latest reboots as a separate series, I think because it's Mike Judge's Beavis and Butt-head as opposed to MTV's. Does that sound right?
Yep, that's exactly right. So you're not counting the newest stuff because of just the title, or are there any other factors that went into that decision?
I'd say another big factor is all of the new episodes from the most recent seasons, the most recent reboot, have been really well received. When I looked at those episode rankings for 2022 and 2023, they weren't even in the discussion of worst. So,
okay,
we're just going to leave that there for now. We're going to put it on a shelf. We're going to forget about it for a second. We're really going to focus on, of those first 214 episodes, the first 60.
Okay. Do you suppose recency bias has anything to do with why the newest seasons are so highly rated? Or are they just that good? That might be a question we have to visit in the future episode.
Yeah, and I also think it's a great question for our audience.
Yes.
What do y'all think? So I wanted to focus on the first 60 episodes because the first 60 episodes is the first 3 seasons.
Okay.
And it's actually 61 episodes in the first 3 seasons, but we're going to leave out Most Wanted, which is the last episode of season 3.
Okay.
Which was very weird, and I don't fully understand this, but the last episode of season 3, Most Wanted, there's a big gap between that episode and the other season 3 episodes, and it came out right before season 4 started.
That's interesting.
So I'm very confused at why that's even in season 3. Personally, in my own headcanon, I consider it season 4.
I wonder, was it a thing where they got so behind that they were practically leading up into the next season, just held it back? If anybody has any behind the scenes info on that, I would love to know. I love these kind of details. I'm a junkie
Mhm.
for behind the scenes stuff.
And another thing to keep in mind about these episodes is normally when you think a season, you think a year. The first 3 seasons of Beavis and Butthead all came out in 1993. So take that for what it's worth.
And if I'm recalling correctly, the number of episodes in these seasons is fairly small and erratic, yes?
Yeah, the first season, there's like hardly anything. It's like 3 or 4 episodes. It's really low. Then 2 and 3 are not equal either. 2 only has a certain number, and then 3 has even more. So all said and done, we're talking about 28% of the original run plus 2011 is in those first 60 episodes.
Gotcha.
And out of those, by the way, we're getting to some quick maths right now.
Uh-oh.
Of those first 60 episodes, only 8 of them are in the IMDb top 50 for the series,
Oh my God.
which means 8 out of 60 is only 13%. So that's 28% of the episodes have 13% of the top 50.
Ooh, okay, so some stats right there already showing that this hypothesis is correct.
Even more weird about those 8 episodes that stick out as part of the top 50, 5 of them come from 2-part episodes because it's No
Oh.
Laughing parts 1 and 2, Citizen Butthead parts 1 and 2, and Kidnapping part 2.
Interesting.
And then the other ones are Closing Time, Scared Straight, and Home Improvement. Those are also in the top 50. But I think it's pretty damning that the ones that are really well remembered from the early runs are the ones that needed a little bit more marinating time.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that's a coincidence. It can't be. They had to invest a little more time and storytelling into a two-parter, and it paid off by being more revered by the audience.
Sounds totally right to me. Okay, so we've looked at the top. Now let's look at the bottom.
Okay.
And if you look at the 18 lowest rated episodes on IMDb, of those 18, 17 are from the first 3 seasons.
Well, to steal a line from you that you just said not that long ago, that's pretty damning.
The people have spoken. And that, I think, screams that those early episodes, they may have been good for what they were at the time, but as the series progressed, I think people saw what the show could be and then looked back at that early stuff and they're like, oh, maybe this wasn't as good as I remembered.
Look, the show did get better with time, but we'll get into that as to maybe some of the reasons why these early episodes ultimately did not work and stand the test of time.
And I have 2 more statistics, so stick with me on this
Okay.
quick maths.
Hit us.
With 214 episodes, that makes 107 the median. Of the first 60 episodes, 40 are below the median.
Whoa.
So 40 out of 60, 2/3 of them are below the median. And if you break it up into quartiles, for those of you who've taken any statistics class, quartiles, more than 52% of the bottom 1/4 episodes come from the first 3 seasons.
Okay.
Okay, so there's my proof.
Yeah, okay, you crunched some numbers, you did some research, and there you have it.
Mm-hmm.
The numbers do not lie.
No.
They speak for themselves.
And by the way, I think this is also a really good time to promote the fact that your boy got really deep into an Excel spreadsheet for this episode.
You? No way.
Yeah, seriously. And the results of that research, I turned into an infographic, which we're going to post on our socials and will also be available on our website. So if you're into that kind of stuff, be sure to check that out. Be sure to give it a like, give it a share.
Please.
Say, hey, Patrick, you did really well with this. I'm a sucker for flattery.
And look, you did an amazing job. I think this infographic does all of the right things. It is informative, it is easy to follow and look at, and it's interesting, and it's just nice. How many Beavis and Butthead infographics can you find out there? Well, guess what? Your boy did it. Share it far and wide, please. We know you're out there, and let's give this thing the visibility it deserves.
Aw, thank you. See, I am a sucker for flattery. Thank you.
Well, there you go, baby. There's some butter.
So now I'd like to talk with you a little bit for the back half of this episode, kind of. Why?
Yeah.
Why is it when we look at these episodes, they're not as highly ranked, they're not as highly remembered, they're the ones at the bottom of the pile? What was it about these episodes from the first 3 seasons that, in retrospect, when we look at them, they don't stack up to the rest of the series?
Well, when any series was starting out in this time, it had to find its footing. That, I think, has got to be number one. These days, we are so used to a show has to be so good right out of the gate and so rock solid because you get 10 episodes, and if you don't make it, then you're just done. You might be done anyways, especially if you're on Netflix. Ooh, shade.
True.
But back in this time, shows came in a little raw, especially Beavis and Butt-head came in a little raw, like very raw, and had to find its footing. Not all of the episodes would necessarily click because the writers were figuring out who these characters were. And say if you have actors, they're trying to figure out who the characters are and find their voices. And if you're a successful show, that happens in the first season. It really comes together, and then you're walking and then you run. But for Beavis and Butt-head, they were starting from such a raw place that, number one, it took longer for them to find that footing. But then also, we have to remember that Beavis and Butt-head was doing the animation festivals. Liquid Television became an instant hit with a niche audience that said, we want more, we want more. And MTV said, okay, we'll give you more. And they rushed everything as fast as they possibly could. So there probably was not as much time and TLC invested in these earlier episodes for that reason.
And I think this is the nature of early episodes for a lot of series where they usually do suck. The first few episodes just don't stack up.
Right. They don't have it together yet.
Yeah, and that's not unique to this series, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah, and a pilot, when people put together a pilot, it's usually the vision of like one person or a very small committed group. Very clearly with Beavis and Butt-head, it was Mike Judge's vision for what this was going to be. And there's a huge difference between someone who has years to develop the concept for a pilot and what someone does for this week's episode of, right?
Oh, yeah, that's a really good point. I don't know how much of a vision Mike Judge had for the longevity of this series. It was just, okay, we're doing this thing. Let's go, 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 go.
Yeah. And I think it's very clear that Beavis and Butt-head and MTV had a lot of trouble getting this show on its feet on the animation end.
Yeah, definitely. And Mike Judge cites the poor animation quality as one of the reasons why he does not like these early episodes and does not put them in the complete, I say that in air quotes, collection.
And there are 2, I think, avenues here as far as animation goes about why these episodes are so bad. One is the animation just straight up sucked.
Right, the animation itself, it sucks.
And if you look at Frog Baseball is actually very raw and unique and special. And then you look at episode 2, which is Give Blood.
Oh, I know you love it.
Okay, so crude is authentic, right? And Frog Baseball was crude, and that gave it authenticity, and that gave it an appeal.
Uh-huh.
Give Blood, I think, is some of the worst animation that has ever made it to air in television history. It's that bad. And when you go back and watch that episode, the backgrounds are bad, the motion is bad, their faces, their eyes, everything does not work.
It's not developed. Whoever was animating this episode in particular, but also a lot of earlier ones, were trying to figure out what exactly the vision was and how this show was going to look. They were doing it in real time, and you see the progression. And one of the things Mike Judge really didn't like was how they would go for more classic animated moves, like eyes bugging out and stuff like that. He did not want that for this show, but that's what the animators gave them. And since they were working so fast, it was use it or what? You only have so much time. You have to work with what you have. You got to send something out. So deliver.
Oh, it's what I tell my students when we're doing journalism. You got to go with what you have, not what you wish you had. And I think they were in that same boat. And I really do think that when you are critiquing a new series and you are seeing where this series is going to go, you really want to look at episode 4.
Okay, and why is that?
I'm going to trademark this right now. We're going to call it Patrick's episode 4 theory.
Okay.
Which is that the 4th episode of a series is going to be the one that you really see if it's going to work or not. Because the pilot's the pilot. The pilots are usually pretty decent. They're usually the vision of one person or a small group. Then you get episode 2 when all of a sudden there's a lot more fingerprints on it.
Yep.
And that's going to be different from episode 1. It's going to be very different just by the nature of how you put the story together. Then you get to episode 3, which is, okay, guys, we got to do it again. And then you get to episode 4, which is, oh, shit, we got to do it again? Right?
Can you?
Here's the thing with Beavis and Butt-head is episode 4 is the season 2 premiere.
Oh.
Because there were so many animation delays that they could only get 3 episodes done before MTV literally had to put the show on the shelf for a couple months and say, we are not ready for prime time here, guys.
No.
There was a couple month delay, and then they came back with the 4th episode, which was the start of season 2. And that should have been a sign.
I agree. And it was, I'm sure. I imagine everybody on staff at the network, what have you, was aware we've got a long road ahead of us. We have got to get our shit together. It's not fully working, but at least we still have the chance to keep trying to make it work. So really, what they should have done is probably taken a little more time in the very beginning to establish the vision a little better, to get the animation a little more in sync and make sure everybody is on the same page. But they didn't want to miss the moment. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say it ultimately bit them in the butt just a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. I think in retrospect, it bit them in the butt.
Yeah, because maybe at the time, and I did not see these earlier episodes at the exact moment they aired, so I cannot speak to this myself. But I imagine people who were hungry after Frog Baseball for more of this weirdness were eating up the episode Giving Blood, and the ones like it thinking, this is great!
Right, and it only sucks in retrospect when you don't have an episode that's as perfect as Pregnant Pause to compare it to.
Right.
You don't know what you're missing, and at the time, I think that was sort of the attitude was like, just like you said, hey, this is new and cool, even if it's kind of cruddily animated and rushed out the door, that's still a good thing because we'd rather have it in our world than not have it.
And of course, with time and practice, of course the show got better. That's just what you do as a professional. And let's not forget, this is also early in Mike Judge's career as an animator and as a person working in entertainment. He's getting his feet wet here.
Yeah, very much so. I'd agree with that. And I do want to take a step back here to also acknowledge the fact that in 1992, 1993, as the series is getting going, animation is not really what it is today. The standards for animation and animated storytelling, I think, were very different in the early 90s, and the quality was definitely not as high as it is today.
Certainly not. And for a show like Beavis and Butt-head, it wasn't expected to be. And also, I don't know if we brought this up before on the podcast or not, but adult animation was a fairly novel thing. There wasn't a whole lot out there, and this was a fairly newer concept that these cartoons were meant for adults, not kids.
Yeah, that definitely was new. And I hate to keep ripping on Give Blood, but I'm going to do it one more time.
Do it.
Because the comparison I like to make as far as the animation goes and as far as the storytelling goes is that animation reminds me a lot of a VHS that I had as a kid, which was the My Pet Monster VHS. Now, if anyone out there remembers My Pet Monster, the animation was awful because it was an animation. It was still shot, foreground, background. There was no movement. And then they would just change the still shot on the foreground like every 5 or 6 seconds and then just have a voiceover behind it.
And sometimes those early Beavis and Butthead episodes did that, where it looks like they're walking sort of, and then the house is moving in the background.
Yeah. There is a definite parallel between that and My Pet Monster. By the way, My Pet Monster is on YouTube.
Oh boy. Okay.
That VHS is on YouTube, and I will occasionally watch My Pet Monster at the fair.
Oh my gosh. How many episodes are in this show?
I don't know. My VHS only had 3.
Okay.
And it was a very obvious attempt to sell a toy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I never had My Pet Monster, but I had the VHS. And when I was like 5, I could watch that and be entertained. Now, when I got to be 13, I was kind of like, oh, hey, you know what? This is animation. How wrong I was, but it didn't throw me off to see something on MTV that looked like something I had watched on a VHS as a little kid.
Interesting. We ought to include a link to the YouTube videos of My Pet Monster just for folks to check it out if they want to, because I've never seen it. In fact, I don't even think I've heard of this before.
Yes, we will definitely do that. If we can also find it, we'll also link to Give Blood.
Okay. Just in case you haven't seen that, or if you need a refresher.
And I do want to bring up, I think, one more thing that we have to talk about as far as why the early episodes sucked. And we've kind of nibbled around the edges of this idea, but to state it clearly for the record, the early storylines were bad.
They were super simplistic and they were garbage.
Yeah, and they had characters that had yet to be defined. There was no show Bible, right?
No, I don't think there was.
Beavis and Butt-head were just, like we talked about in last episode, these metalhead burnouts, and that was all their character was. There was nothing more to it, and they had to write 60 episodes to figure out who these characters were.
Right. Which is why I think you start off with some of the more antisocial, sociopathic tendencies, as well as the gross out humor. Like in Give Blood, of course, there's blood everywhere. It's the easy gag. And when you have how many minutes to tell a goofy story, I can see why you go there, but you can do better.
And they did. Certainly, after the first 3 seasons, we start to see these characters develop, and we start to see this very, I think, human side of them. Even though they're incredibly stupid, they're still lovable. And rather than being something we kind of look at and pity, which we still do in the later episodes, we look at them in pity and like shame in the first few episodes, the first few seasons. Later, it's like pity, but also that's kind of cute. That's kind of funny how they saw the world in that moment through their lens.
Yes.
There's less of that in the early seasons. There's less compassion. There's less heart. There's more gross out stuff. There's more shock.
Yeah.
Look what we're trying to get away with on MTV. So it's kind of like more punkish. And don't get me wrong, I appreciate the punk aesthetic and the punk attitude. But the show worked better when it wasn't that.
Once they decided that not only do we see the world through Beavis and Butthead's lens, and the joke is on them, is when the show really started to click and they were telling some really good stories. Even if it was just a few minutes, it was funnier. It was better.
You make a great point that the show's better when Beavis and Butthead are the butt of the joke, not the ones instigating the pain and frustration on others.
Exactly. Once they stopped hurting other people and basically what their actions were doing was hurting them, that helped make it better and funnier.
Yes. So those are our reasons on why we think at least IMDb voters voted the way they did. And we're now curious what you think of those first 3 seasons. And here's the challenge, if you've ever seen them at all, because they are kind of hard to get. And
King Turd.
yeah, I am saving up a rant for a future episode about why we deserve to have the entire series out on physical media and not have to raise the skull and bones flag to get what we want to see. But that's for another episode.
And you know what? That episode is going to be titled An Open Letter to Mike Judge.
Very much so. Before we do that, we do want to hear from you. Do you think we are hitting on the right notes here? Do you think we missed anything? Is there things that you're seeing that maybe we just didn't touch on in this episode? You know how to get a hold of us, but just in case folks don't remember, Shar, how do they do that?
And if you just think we're totally full of it, I would love to hear your reasons why on that, too. Maybe we are. We're willing to hear you out. Go to tpforyourearholes.com. You can fill out our contact form, and that goes into our inboxes. We will definitely read it. Or you can go on our socials, Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, TP for Your Earholes, and on YouTube, also TP for Your Earholes.
And a huge, huge, huge thank you to all you fartknockers out there for joining us. It's really been a lot of fun to put this episode together for me personally, and thanks for being a part of it.
And thank you for doing the work. This was a lot of fun.
So what are we going to talk about next week?
Next week, I think it's time we do a top 5 list again from our home office in Butt, Montana.
Hell yeah.
And I'm in a feel-good mood right now. I could use some happiness and joy. So we're going to talk about the top 5 times Beavis and Butt-head did good things.
Ooh. Yeah, they're not just psychopaths. They're not just sociopaths.
No.
Oh my goodness. I can't wait to dive into that. That'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can't wait either. And I hope you'll all join us for that episode next time.
Yeah, we'll see you then.